Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson China. It is Friday, so you're probably wondering how your $1 trillion Build Back Better project is going, the one that Joe Biden promised would save us from the problems his party manufactured during COVID. Well, there are a lot of ways to measure the progress of Build Back Better, but let's start with the most obvious, poverty. Poverty is rising fast in the United States. The financial markets have sunk to below where they were in the middle of the so-called pandemic when Joe Biden took office. If you've been brave enough to follow the descent of your 401k this week, keep in mind that it's actually worse than it appears. Whatever you think you have has been devalued by deflation. Inflation. So not only do you have less, you can buy less with it. And if you multiply that by an entire country, you see why household net worth is declining faster than it has at any time in the history of the country. And that's why millions of Americans are now not just thinking about postponing their retirement, they're considering a move to Tijuana to afford housing and dentistry and gasoline. So the economy, in other words, is not getting better, and no informed person seems to think it's going to get better anytime soon. So what does Joe Biden, who promised to fix it, think of that? Well, it'll be interesting to know. Unfortunately, when he spoke in Washington today, he didn't really tell us. Instead, he got, as he often does, sidetracked and went off about some relationship he had with a 12-year-old girl. Watch this.
You gotta say hi to me. We go back a long way. She was 12, I was 30, but anyway.
It's hilarious. We go back a long way. She was 12, I was 30. Anyway, what? What was Joe Biden talking about? Who was he talking about? What exactly was he describing? It sounded like a late-life confession. We don't know, actually. For once, the White House is not clarifying what Joe Biden said. They're just walking away slowly. And the New York Times is never going to get to the bottom of it, obviously, not just because they're Democratic partisans, which they are, but because, like everybody else, they don't take Joe Biden very seriously when he talks. Whatever Biden's other talents may be, shelling for credit card companies or having Michael Jackson-level plastic surgery or showering with his daughter, he has a lot of trouble talking. He's not good at that. He rambles. He doesn't finish his thoughts, such as they are. He makes bizarre, unexclaimed claims, like the one you just heard. Joe Biden, again, whatever you say about him, is not an articulate man. It's not a partisan point. It's universally acknowledged. Like the illegal aliens he's allowed into this country by the millions, Joe Biden can barely speak English.
Some people ask whether you are fit for the job. And when you hear that, I wonder what you think.
Watch me. Looking at your child, you know the needs of an innocent to live. And not having the money to pay for it. Not a joke. Think about it. Think about what you'd think about. You're going to make that all cement. You're going to use that as basis to build on because you need security, you need stability for what you have on top, and you're going to build up stories beyond. I mean, this is incredible. This is the United States of America, for God's sake.
Mr. President, thank you.
How would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused. I have trouble even saying to myself my own head the number of years. I no more think of myself as being as old as I am than fly.
So obviously Joe Biden is old and senile. He's 79. And at that age, sentences, like stairs, become a challenge. We're not judging, by the way. Anyone who's past 50 can feel the loss of acuity, if you're being honest. There comes a day when you realize, I'm just not going to be able to finish the Rubik's Cube this week. The older you get, the less sharp you become. That's the natural process, or so we have always assumed. But recently, we've noticed something that changed our view, and that something is called Kamala Harris. Or is it Kamala? She's on tape using both pronunciations, so your guess is as good as ours. As a kind of tiebreaker, we're going to go ahead and call her Carmela, but it doesn't matter. The point is, if you're not even certain how to pronounce your own first name, you're likely senile. But here's the thing. Carmela Harris is only 57 years old. She's 22 years younger than Joe Biden, young enough to be his daughter, which is to say, young enough to shower with him, and too young for most kinds of dementia. So, of course, she's probably medically in her right mind. And yet, despite that fact, Here's how Kamala Harris actually speaks.
We all believe that when we talk about the children of the community, they are children of the community. And so what we all experienced is on an electric school bus, on an electric bus, no exhaust, no diesel smell. It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree. She would look down at me and Kamala, what do you want? What do you want? And I looked back up at her and I said, freedom!
You're gonna literally see the craters on the moon with your own eyes. Oh my goodness. With your own eyes, I'm telling you.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong. We know community banks are in the community and understand the needs and desires of that community as well as the talent and capacity of community. It is the perspective of a woman who grew up a black child in America, who was also a prosecutor, who also has a mother who arrived here at the age of 19 from India, who also, likes hip hop. Like, what do you want to know?
We could go on, but to be clear, a community bank is in the community, of course. So it turns out that if anything, if we're being honest, Kamala Harris is even less articulate than the mannequin whose job she wants to take. And that's odd. It seems unnatural. Do Democratic politicians get dumber as they get younger? Have they inverted the process of cognitive decline? That would seem to defy the laws of nature. But the facts suggest it is happening. And we know this from watching John Fetterman. John Fetterman's only 53. 53 by any measure, and certainly from the perspective of those of us who are 53, seems pretty darn young, really just hitting your stride. And yet when John Fetterman opens his mouth to reveal mossy, unbrushed teeth, he makes Joe Biden and Kamala Harris look like William F. Buckley on Adderall, silver-tongued and supernaturally fluent. Check out this war crime against language.
Come out and step with us. We will be able to stand with you in D.C. Send me to Washington, D.C. so I can work with Senator Casey and I can champion the union way of life in Jersey. What is wrong with demanding for an easy, safe kind of their income, a path to a safe place for them to win? Eliminate the filibuster? Yeah! Get things done. Yeah. Send us back to New Jersey. Send me to D.C. for you.
Now, that's unfair, you say, because John Fetterman had a stroke this spring. And that's true, by the way, not that it stopped him from running for U.S. Senate from Pennsylvania. And we do feel sorry for him. But even before his current brain damage, Fetterman was like this. Listening to John Fetterman was like hearing a car backfire. There were loud and jarring noises, but you couldn't be certain what they were. Was that gunfire? Was it fireworks? You didn't know. It definitely wasn't human language. And at the time, Fetterman was many years away from qualifying for Social Security, so you could not blame Alzheimer's. And even when his words were, strictly speaking, intelligible, they still, when you added them together, made no sense. In March of 2021, to name one example, Fetterman demanded the release of all 1,200 people, all of them, held in prison in Pennsylvania for second-degree murder. Watch.
I hope that it could lead to a conversation that would free close to 1,200 people of a legacy that never made sense, that encompasses victims' input, encompasses their conduct and behavior in prison. It takes a look at the resources that are wasted on that.
So even Joe Biden wouldn't say that. It's too stupid. So it's hard to avoid the conclusion in the Democratic Party, at least at the leadership level, they're getting dumber as they get younger. And you know this from looking at the party's future standard bearer, Sandy Cortez. Sandy Cortez is even younger than John Fetterman. She's young enough to be his daughter, in fact. She's 32, and as far as we know, she has not had a stroke. Sandy Cortez grew up in a generation that has carried a computer in their pocket since childhood with instant access to every recorded fact in history. And then she majored in international relations at the highly prestigious Boston University, which some say is accredited. So she's had every advantage, and she currently enjoys the greatest advantage of all, we thought, which is youth. So you would imagine that Sandy Cortez would be Churchill in yoga pants, a magician with words and data, a master of linguistics and erudite discourse. Oh, no. No. She's this.
There are studies that show that women who wear makeup or regularly wear like a decent amount of makeup, kind of show up to the office and glam, also make more money. And so at that point, it stops being, these calculations and decisions stop being about choice, and they start being about patriarchy. We live in systems that were largely built for the convenience of men, and oftentimes were designed with the subjugation of women and queer people in mind.
So Sandy Cortez has devolved to the point where she doesn't even bother to make political arguments. She whines about men as she applies eyeshadow in the ladies' room, just like they do at every restaurant in New York City on a Saturday night, and then expects you to support, say, banning passenger cars as a result. So we make fun of Joe Biden all the time, but even senile old Joe Biden can muster more than that. So once again, how do we explain this? Well, in effect, Democrats are challenging the core premise of Charles Darwin. They're devolving. Our Surgeon General has uploaded a picture of himself enjoying an ice cream cone without any ice cream in it. Really? The presidential debates are going to take place 2 years from now. Now, we've always said, obviously, they're going to dump Joe Biden because he can't handle it. Now we're beginning to think they're going to stick with Joe Biden because he's clearly the smartest person in a leadership position at the Democratic Party. Now, we don't know. We're not privy to the discussions. But when that candidate is chosen and appears on stage 2 years from now, we know exactly the argument that person will make because it's inevitable.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President of
Introduced for the first time ever anywhere the 45th President of the United States of America.
So that's where we're headed. If you no longer respect language, and they don't, after a while you no longer use language, and they won't, and you're left with merely a primal scream. Bet on it. That's coming.